There's a version of Ji Chang-wook that everyone knows, the heartthrob from Healer, the action star from the K2, the actor whose smile can light up a screen and whose fight scenes can break the internet. For over a decade, he's been painted as the quintessential good guy of K-drama. Hardworking, scandal-free, the humble son who made good. His image is so polished, so impeccably managed that it feels almost bulletproof. But behind that spotless facade, just beneath the surface of that carefully curated perfection, lies a far more complex and contentious story. This isn't the story of his triumphs you already know. This is the story of the cracks, the pressures, the silent battles, and the controversial choices that have quietly threatened to dismantle everything he built. The first real tremor in the foundation of Ji Chang-wook's impeccable public image didn't come from a scandalous relationship or a rude comment, but from a piece of paper. In 2019, as he was serving his mandatory military service, a report surfaced that sent a shockwave through his fan base. It was revealed that he had applied for and was granted a transfer from his active duty post as an enlisted soldier in the military band to a new role as an entertainment soldier. Now, on the surface, this might not sound like a big deal, but in South Korea, where military service is a sacred and often fraught obligation, this move was loaded with meaning. The timing was everything. The transfer came just before a major public performance, a concert where he was slated to be a featured soloist. Fans who had camped out for days to see him were left devastated, their tickets suddenly worthless. The public reaction was swift and brutal. Online forums and comment sections erupted. Was Ji Chang-wook receiving special treatment? Was this a cushy move to lighten his load? The whispers began to swirl. Was the industry's golden boy using his connections to get a softer serve? The official line from his agency was one of necessity, not convenience. They stated he was suffering from a worsening ankle injury, one so severe it required surgery and made it impossible for him to stand for the long periods required by the band. But in the court of public opinion, the damage was done. For an actor whose brand was built on authenticity and hard work, the allegations of privilege stung in a way that a typical scandal might not. This wasn't about a private misstep. It was about a perceived betrayal of his public duty. It forced his team into a defensive posture, releasing medical documents and detailed explanations to a skeptical public. This was the first time the narrative of the flawless, humble Ji Chang-wook was publicly challenged, and it revealed a harsh truth. In the hyper-competitive world of Hallyu, even the most beloved stars are just one misunderstood decision away from a crisis. But the military controversy was just a prelude, a warning shot. The real seismic shift in his career narrative came with his highly anticipated return to civilian life in 2019. All eyes were on him. What would his comeback project be? The expectation, the pressure, was immense. The industry standard for a star of his caliber is to choose a surefire hit, a sexy action thriller, or a sweeping romance that would reassure fans and advertisers that he was back and better than ever. So when the announcement came that he would be leading Melting Me Softly, a sci-fi romantic comedy from the esteemed writer of My Love from the Star, it seemed like a safe bet. But the moment the show began to air, the atmosphere soured. The reviews were not just bad, they were brutal. Critics panned the convoluted plot, the questionable character motivations, and the tonal inconsistencies. But the sharpest criticism was reserved for Ji Chang-wook himself. For the first time in his career, his acting was being called into question. Commentators and netizens alike began to ask a once unthinkable question. Had Ji Chang-wook lost his touch? The discourse online was merciless. He's phoning it in, some said. The charm feels forced, wrote others. The show's ratings plummeted, and the backlash was a direct hit to his professional reputation. This wasn't just a project failing. This was Ji Chang-wook failing. The controversy here was one of perceived decline. The narrative shifted from, can he make a glorious comeback, to, is he still a relevant leading man? The industry, which operates on perceived value as much as talent, began to watch him with cautious eyes. His choice of follow-up projects would now be under a microscope, each one a referendum on his staying power. It was a brutal lesson in how quickly the tide of public opinion can turn, and how a single misstep can define an entire chapter of an actor's career. And then, just as the professional critiques were settling, a more personal, more insidious wave of rumors began to crash against his carefully maintained private life. For years, Ji Chang-wook had been the subject of intense shipping culture, particularly with his Healer co-star Park Min-young. Their on-screen chemistry was so electric, so believable, that a large segment of the fandom became convinced a real-life romance was blooming, or had been hidden for years. This is a common phenomenon in K-drama, but the intensity surrounding this particular pairing was staggering. Every social media post, every vague comment in an interview was dissected for hidden clues. But this fervor took a dark turn. When Park Min-young became embroiled in a very public and damaging scandal of her own in 2022 involving her high-profile relationship with a businessman tied to a massive financial crime investigation, the conspiracy theories spiraled out of control. A bizarre and entirely unsubstantiated rumor began to circulate in the darkest corners of the internet that Ji Chang-wook had been the real love of her life all along, and that he was somehow connected to, or even heartbroken by, her very public troubles. The rumor was baseless, a classic piece of fan fiction spun out of control, but it highlighted the immense pressure he faces to maintain a pristine image. He couldn't comment, he couldn't deny it, without dragging himself deeper into a scandal that wasn't his. He had to remain silent, a statue weathering a storm not of his making. This incident exposed the double-edged sword of his good guy persona. Because he is so private and reveals so little, the public and the media feel compelled to fill in the blanks, often with the most dramatic stories imaginable. His silence, a tool for maintaining dignity, became a vacuum into which controversy was sucked. This brings us to the most recent and perhaps most nuanced controversy of his career, the great genre debate. Post-military, Ji Chang-wook made a conscious and some would say confounding decision to move away from the very genres that made him a superstar. Instead of another Healer or K2, he chose a series of quieter, more introspective and often melancholic roles. Backstreet Rookie was a light rom-com that faced its own set of criticisms over certain plot elements. The Sound of Magic was a whimsical, dark musical. If You Wish Upon Me was a heartfelt but deeply somber drama about terminally ill patients. While these projects were praised by critics for showing his range, a vocal part of his fan base began to grow restless. The comments on his social media and on fan forums became a chorus of, "When will you do a proper action romance again? We miss the old Ji Chang-wook." This created a silent but palpable tension between the artist he wants to be and the star his audience wants him to remain. Is Ji Chang-wook being stubborn? Is he deliberately sabotaging his commercial potential to pursue artistic fulfillment? Or is he, as some industry insiders have speculated, trapped by his own early success, struggling to find scripts that live up to the legendary status of his past hit? Every new project announcement is now met with a mix of excitement and skepticism. When The Manipulated, a dark revenge thriller, was announced, the reaction was, finally, he's going back to action. But the show, while showcasing his intense dramatic chops, was also criticized for a familiar, convoluted plot, leading to a sense of déjà vu. The controversy is no longer about a single event, but about his entire career trajectory. The debate rages. Is Ji Chang-wook evolving into a more profound actor, or is he slowly fading from the A-list by refusing to give the people what they want? So, where does this leave us with Ji Chang-wook? The actor standing before us today is not the same untouchable hero of 2014. He is a man shaped by public scrutiny, military controversy, professional risks, and the immense weight of expectation. The pristine image has been fractured not by one explosive scandal, but by a series of quiet cumulative pressures. The question is no longer, is he perfect, but what is he becoming? His upcoming projects, the high-profile fantasy Human X Gumiho with Jun Ji-hyun and the film Colony, are his next great gambit. They are massive, expensive productions that will test his star power like never before. Another commercial or critical misstep could cement the narrative of a star in decline. But a success, a triumph, could silence the critics forever and redefine him not as the guy from Healer, but as a versatile, enduring force in global entertainment. The story of Ji Chang-wook is still being written. It's a story that proves that in the world of Hallyu, the most dangerous battles aren't fought on rooftops in the K2, but in the silent spaces between public perception and private reality, between artistic ambition and commercial demand. The clean, wholesome image was a powerful beginning, but it's the crack that have made his story truly compelling. The audience is now watching, waiting to see if the man behind the perfect smile can build something even more resilient from the pieces.